If you like religious horror and or dark dramas, then Evil is exactly the kind of show you need. And if you're still on the fence about it, I'm going to discuss some of the reasons why you should absolutely give this series a watch. In Evil, a skeptical clinical psychologist, Christian Bouchard, joins a priest in training, David Acosta, and a blue-collar contractor, Ben Shakur, as they investigate supposed miracles, demonic possessions, and other extraordinary occurrences to see if there's a scientific explanation or if they're possibly works of the supernatural. I really dig the structure of the show. It's got that X-Files monster, or in this case, Demon of the Week trope going for it, while also using those cases to tie together an even larger narrative over the course of the season. The cases they come across range everywhere from serial killers, the mentally ill, voodoo, VR video games seemingly coming to life, internet creepypastas, and of course, demonic possessions. And of course, the best part about all these cases is seeing how the team goes about solving each given mystery. I've always been rather fascinated by horror stories that really dissect Catholicism and the idea of good and evil, and how do followers of the faith react to situations that aren't so surface level versus those who don't believe. And this show tends to live in that gray area, which is often the best place to bring out rich and interesting storylines. An excellent example would be during an exorcism midway through the show. David and Kristen approach it from completely different angles, with the former believing this is indeed the work of the devil and wants to continue the very dangerous exorcism, possibly at the cost of the woman's life, while the latter views it as a deeply disturbed mentally ill woman who is prone to perceiving false information to be real. These are the kind of dilemmas that work for me in fiction, when we question our own morality and wonder what we'd do if we were put in the same sensitive situations. And surprisingly, there's some genuinely creepy moments in the show, and not just creepy for a network television series, but just for a horror show in general. I've tried getting into other horror shows like American Horror Story and Supernatural due to constant pressure from fellow horror fans, and those shows just don't work for me for whatever reason. But with Evil, they do such a good job with tone and atmosphere for the specific storyline. A lot of the composed shots make me think of other properties like The Exorcist, which I think it's fair to say served as influence for the creators of this show. I really enjoyed the direction too. Every frame feels like it has purpose, and even seemingly insignificant shots like this have something to say. I mean, notice how the chandelier light hangs over David's head. It's made to look like he has a halo over his head, with David's character being sort of the angel of the three, with him having faith in God and believing it's his duty to save people and defeat all the evils of the world. Now, while we're on the topic of David, let's talk about our lead trio of characters. I'm sure many of you know Mike Colter from his time as Luke Cage in the Marvel Netflix series. Katja Herbers is a relative newcomer for me, and the only other time I've ever seen Arsif Manvi was way back when he was in charge of Pizza Time. But each of them brings something unique to the table. The character of Ben has the charm and likability to offset his pragmatic mindset. Kristen is headstrong and an absolute fighter. And finally, David is the stoic and God-fearing man who acts as the unofficial leader. And altogether, this gives us our holy trinity, no pun intended. Everyone in this trio feels like a real person with real flaws, and even though they're all experts in their fields, in their personal lives, they're not free of mistakes or insecurities. That's what I love about them. A lonely Christian battles with lustful feelings for David despite being in a seemingly happy marriage. David struggles with the temptations of giving into his past demons of drugs and premarital sex. And with Ben, you would think for an easygoing guy there wouldn't be much conflict in finding a relationship, but we get to learn that even that can be rocky for him. All of them have great chemistry, and in large part, I think that's why the show works. Because if you don't have layered, interesting characters to root for or against, then even the best story in the world isn't going to matter, even though I think that this show has that as well. But speaking of characters to root against, the main villains of this show, boy, do we get a variety. The demons are ultra fascinating, and Michael Emerson is terrific at playing these weaselly, conniving, and just easily hateable characters, much like his old role in Lost. Here, he's a thorn in just about everyone's side, and worse is that he actively tries to recruit a prodigy of sorts in a depressed young white male to help him incite violence against women. I mean, what an a-hole. But to go a little bit more in depth with the monsters, the character designs and makeup are just awesome. There's George, for those of you who have a fear of sleep paralysis. He's the personal demon to Kristen who taunts her over her feelings for David and her own self doubts. And he's a bad guy, but he's got such a cool, creepy voice and a horrifying charisma that you can't help but hang on to his every word and action. Every scene he appears in, he just completely steals. And then there's a humanoid goat being who just casually takes diligent notes and plans out strategies on paper. I mean, it's such a far out and bizarro concept. But I'm so glad this series just decides to go all in and have fun with its core theme, which is, good versus evil, a tale as old as time. But that's going to bring us to the end of today's video. If I've sold you on the show, you can watch season 1 of Evil on either Netflix or Paramount Plus, and it should also be noted that CBS did order a second season, which began filming in October of 2020 and is expected to return to TV sometime later in 2021. But if you enjoyed this video and you enjoy this type of content, please leave a like, as it does help out the channel very much. And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest in the world of movie and TV news, well, you're already in the right place, and consider subscribing, because I would love to have you along for the ride. But until next time, this has been Millennium Movies, and I will see you all very soon.